Welcome to the Community Foundation's webcast on Adaptive Philanthropy in Times of Change. I am Emily Thompson, Director of Donor Services at CFGG, and I'm representing our development and grant staff today to facilitate this conversation. Just a few housekeeping notes to start us off here. We are recording this and we'll share it on our website and social media. I ask that you please make sure that you have muted your microphone. And to help this run efficiently, please put any questions you have into the chat box and we will answer those questions at the end as time permits. This is going to be a full hour, so let's get started with today's webcast on food insecurity in Guilford County. Currently, 1 in 7 individuals and 1 in 5 of our children face food insecurity in Guilford County. Food insecurity describes a household's inability to provide enough food for every person to live an active and healthy life. These figures are expected to change negatively to 1 in 6 and 1 in 4 later this year due to the economic impact of the pandemic on our community's residents. Over 52% of individuals seeking food assistance at local food pantries are new. This increased level of new clients has sustained since late March and early April. With the supplemental unemployment being discontinued in the coming weeks and the federal stimulus funds being used by families, it is expected that the need for greater food assistance in our community's residents will grow in the coming months. Today, we welcome 4 Greensboro professionals that specialize in making sure these needs are addressed and that our community is fed and provided for. Leslie Isikoff is the Executive Director of A Simple Gesture. Emily McCollum is the Food Project Coordinator at the Weaver Foundation. Myron Wilkins is the Executive Director of Greensboro Urban Ministry. And Eric Adams is the CEO of Second Harvest Food Bank of Northwest North Carolina. We will first take a few minutes to allow our guests to introduce themselves and speak a little bit about their organization. Leslie, start us off.
Yes, thank you, Emily, and thank you for your research. That was very well done. Good job. Thank you for that opening. So my name is Leslie Isikoff, and I'm the Director of A Simple Gesture. If you're not familiar with A Simple Gesture, we began in 2015. And our goal is really to help build the capacity of local food banks. Many of the food banks at the time are having a hard time meeting the need of our neighbors. So we wanted to make it really easy for everyone in the community to give back. So we created green bags, and on the green grocery bags is a list of items that the local food banks needed the most and a list of dates. And we asked that every time somebody go to the grocery store, they get 1 extra item, put it in their bag, and then every other month on the designated day, they just leave the bag on their front porch. And our volunteers come around, pick up the bag, and then deliver it directly to local food banks. So we started with about 180 families in June of 2015. And now we pick up from a little over 4,500 families every month. So we've grown a lot, and we really wanted to focus on feeding children. So most of the food goes to Backpack Beginnings and Out of the Garden, but we also have 7 other pantries that we support, and that's what we do.
Thank you, Leslie. Myron, let's hear from you. Myron, I think you're muted.
I was just testing to see if you all were listening. Myron Wilkins of Greensboro Urban Ministry. Greensboro Ministry is a multi-service organization here serving Guilford County. Our main areas of service are housing and food, and we seek to respond to those needs and helping people ultimately develop solutions that will not only meet their immediate crisis, but bring stability to all of our neighbors who come to us. And with regards to our food emphasis, we emphasize 2 key areas where we're involved with food. One is our Potter's House Kitchen, where we serve meals every day, 7 days a week, to people who would come at lunchtime. And we also serve meals to our shelter guests who stay at our Weaver house for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Also, we have a food pantry. We have a great partnership with Second Harvest, and through them, we're able to pick up food at grocery stores. Also, we do several food drives, and we rely on the community to give us food. And people can come to our food pantry twice a month to receive grocery assistance, and usually we'll give out groceries for 3 to 4 days, depending on the size of the family. And so we're delighted to be on this call. Thank you for inviting us and thinking of us as worthy to be with these other great guests. And we look forward to our conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Myron. Emily, tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization.
Thank you, Emily, and hello to everyone who is listening. I am Emily McCollum, and I work at the Weaver Foundation. The Weaver Foundation is a family foundation here in Greensboro, started over 50 years ago by Mike Weaver and his father, Herman. And throughout those 50 plus years, the foundation has supported a lot of organizations in the greater Greensboro area. Most specifically for this call, in 2016, the foundation board decided to focus resources and time on the issue of hunger, knowing that our community was really facing some significant issues around food insecurity and hunger, and have been able to partner with some organizations to do that, specifically Guilford County Schools, knowing that we have 73,000 students in our public school system, and over 65% of those needing free and reduced lunch. So partnering with them, as well as other organizations that are able to get food to families and children and individuals who are in need. So I'm really thankful to have been able to work with everyone on this call and the great work that their organizations are doing.
Thank you, Emily. Eric.
Good morning, everyone. Emily, thank you to you and the foundation for this opportunity to talk about this critical issue. My name's Eric Aft, CEO of Second Harvest Food Bank of Northwest North Carolina. We serve the 18 counties of Northwest North Carolina that has a population of 2 million people, and unfortunately, well over 300,000 of those individuals live in poverty, and even more face food insecurity. Second Harvest itself supports a network of 460 programs throughout the region that are delivered by over 290 different agencies, many partners, of course, providing multiple programs. We also, along with sourcing food for the partner agency network, we provide nutrition services and education, SNAP outreach to get more people enrolled in our well-known culinary training program through our Providence program that has now graduated over 760 individuals. We're very proud to invest, the county where we invest the most food is actually Guilford County, and have the most partners with over 100 different partner agency programs that we support. And just pulled some statistics this morning for the fiscal year we're about to end. We source just over 81% of the food that those partner programs are providing to the community. And we have great folks like Myron's group, as well as One Step Further and others, many of which are probably on this call today. We couldn't do what we do without the wonderful work that they do every single day.
Thank you, Eric. So I have a few questions for the four of you. So if you want to answer in any way that you're able to, just a reminder, if you have questions as we're talking, put them in the chat box and we'll ask those at the end. I just have a few questions from me. Why are you all passionate about this work? What brought you to this work, and why are you passionate even pre-COVID?
I'll go. I'm originally from up north. I'm the Yankee in the room, I guess. And probably before 6 years ago, was hard pressed to find Greensboro on the map. But one of the things that drew me to Greensboro Urban Ministry is this holistic approach of helping people in need to not only meet temporal needs, but to meet long-term solutions. And particularly in the area of food, you know, most of us, food is a very social and a very daily need. And one of the things that actually came to my mind when I was deciding to come here was that I had an incident where I have 3 sons. They're now 21, 28, and 31, and they're big boys. And I've had to work just to keep them fed, let alone pay for college. And I remember one day going to my refrigerator, and I was really upset because they left you ever been to the refrigerator and they just leave that corner of milk in the container? And I had in my mind, I got up and I said, I want my Cheerios. I had already had in my mind the banana sliced on it and that whole, I mean, I had built up this great experience I was going to have around some Cheerios. And I got to the refrigerator and there was a corner of milk. And the thing that bothered most about it was that, you know, they thought about me. They didn't drink all the milk. They decided that we need to leave some for Dad. So they left me a corner. And I remember going almost into this tirade about milk. And then an epiphany hit me that, you know, there were people, families that were within a walking distance of where I was standing in my kitchen, who opened their refrigerator and had nothing, who had empty cupboards and didn't know where the next meal was coming from. And how privileged I was to be able to even be upset about Cheerios and being able to have access to go run to the grocery store and get more cereal and milk. But the real sense that I think it's a travesty of our country, of our world, and certainly even here in Greensboro, which is one of the most generous communities that I've ever lived in, the idea that children may go to bed hungry tonight or a family may not know where the next meal coming from. That's a tragedy, but also it gives me hope that I know and I believe that this community has the resource and hopefully the will to before too long to make that a thing of the past.
Thank you, Myron. Leslie, Emily, Eric?
I'll build on that. You know, like Myron said, food is a need. It's a basic need. And so I have a background working with children in schools. And when I first started this work, I had a principal say to me when I asked, why are you interested in focusing on food? Like, your school. And he said, Emily, my job is to remove as many barriers to learning as possible. And so thinking about how we can't function without food, we can all relate to that. The moments that we have been hungry, hangry, whatever that may look like. And then thinking about children in school trying to learn. And then I think it extends beyond that. You know, learning is a lifelong process. And so if we think about having enough food really is removing a barrier. And so I just feel really passionately that everyone, you can't read it, but behind Eric, there's a sign that says everyone deserves to eat. And I think that's really important to remember.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'll build on that as well. I've always believed that food is a human right and that we all deserve to be able to eat. And even as a young child, my parents really pushed that we could change the world. And I have very, very smart siblings who I truly believe will solve the big issues of our world. And hunger happens to be the easiest, I think, of the big problems of the world. Hunger, food needs to be affordable and accessible. And if you can make those two things possible, you can solve hunger. So for me, solving hunger is absolutely within our reach. We've come very close in our lifetime. We've cut hunger in half globally just since 1990. So we can do this, and for me, it's really exciting to be a part of something that we can solve. So yeah, I think it's exciting to be a part of something that's so important to people every single day, and also to know that we have it within our reach to solve one of the history's biggest issues.
Great.
Well, I came to this organization. I was very fortunate to join Second Harvest 2 years ago, and now completing 30 years of human service work. And yeah, so I really didn't come to it with the idea of, you know, that hunger specifically as an issue was a passion, but it was easy to see that, hunger is a part of a greater conversation around justice work, around creating the opportunity for every person to reach his or her self-determined potential. And so it's really that framework that I see our activities and the various strategies that we undertake is that, again, this is about creating opportunity for people to achieve success. And for me, that's what drives me every single day. It's not necessarily the hunger conversation, but as Emily and Leslie references, food is foundational. It's kind of where it begins. It's the fuel that all of us need to be successful, not only just to get up and move around, but to think and think clearly and to develop as human beings. So I quickly became incredibly passionate about this element of justice work, which is critical for our communities to undertake.
Thank you for that, Eric. So I'll go to you, Eric, first for this next question. What has surprised you the most about how COVID has affected your organization and the people you serve?
What has surprised me the most? I think I'm not sure if there's a lot of surprises there, because there's a few things. One is people have a lot of pride, and it is hard for them to come forward, whether they have faced poverty all of their life or the situation that hit us in March and now is going to be with us for months to come is new for them and has placed them in a position they never thought they would be in. It is hard for people to come forward. The other piece that I think that hasn't surprised me is the generosity of people. Just yesterday, we are doing a daily pop-up pantry distribution, and literally there's hundreds of cars that are lined up to get assistance. And I was doing a little traffic direction myself, and a woman, and I asked her if I could share her name, and her name is Sharon Spees. And we were talking as she was waiting in line in her car, and she said, not everybody around me has transportation, so if I have some time and I know this is happening, I come by and I pick it up, and I pick up extra grocery bags so I can divvy it out to my neighbors. And we hear that all the time. This is what community is all about, whether it's somebody, making an extra donation of funds, people trying to figure out ways to do food drives and, continue their work with a simple gesture, and others. It's just amazing to see. So actually it has reinforced what I think I've known all about people, is that we all want to help, and it's hard for us to ask for help. So, but it's been an amazing journey.
Thank you, Eric. Do any of you, anyone else have any surprises since COVID? Myron, you're muted.
I would say that one of the surprises has been, and I guess the more aha moments of kind of realization, and it sounded similar to what Eric has talked about, is that hunger doesn't know economics, it doesn't know gender, race, those things. When people in Christ, we find that there are people now that are in crisis financially that would never have thought of themselves as being in this situation. And so, we're seeing folks from a very much more a variety of strata of folks who are coming for help. And in my community, I've occasionally I put out a donation box for my neighbors to drop off food. And so, but what has started happening over this time is that two things. One, even the boxes on the corner, when I come out in the morning, most of the time there's groceries on my porch. So my house is the gum house, and I get groceries on the porch because, one, I think people, it speaks to the generosity of the community. People want to help others in this time of crisis. But also what it's done too is that I've had conversations with neighbors of mine who are struggling, or they know of people who might classically be more middle class or people that wouldn't tend to need relief help of this nature, who are coming, who are asking for help, who are receiving help. And so I think the surprise and pleasant surprise, which isn't really a surprise at all, is the great outpouring of generosity in our community of folks who have stepped up to recognize that there are a lot of people hurting and there's help needed, and that there are people who historically didn't need help that are coming for help. And I think that all of us who are doing this work are doing our best to also make those folks feel welcome and let them know that only by God's grace, any of us could be on the other side of the desk.
Great. Thank you, Myron. That's powerful. Leslie or Emily, do you have anything to add to that?
I will just add that I think it is worth, so like Myron, I think the outpouring of generosity has also been, I mean, not a surprise. I think we have a generous community, but also how quickly things can happen. And so I think sometimes, one, how quickly you can go from having enough money to purchase food to not having enough money to purchase food. Like that can, we've seen how quickly that can happen. We've also seen how quickly we can come together to support folks who are struggling. And so I think that's something we have to take away and from this, recognizing that when there's a will, there's a way. And so how do we act on that continuing into the future?
Following up on that, I have to give kudos to Emily and Eric and Myron about changing a lot of how they do what they do to meet the need of everybody coming. And I know that we're probably going to touch on that later, but every pantry and every nonprofit is changing their business model to meet the need, which is absolutely incredible. So kudos to each of my peers for doing that. But also working with Guilford County schools and many of the hunger nonprofits in town that very quickly, really kind of overnight, went from feeding kids in schools to making sure that kids were fed every single day of the week, and making sure that there were multiple places that families could go eat was absolutely incredible to be a part of. And I feel honored to be in a community that does that. And a shout out to Weaver Foundation and Emily for heading that up. And I've also been really impressed, again, just to echo everybody, we had a woman come in on Friday who had a few extra dollars from PEBT, that's pandemic EBT, which is the food stamps. So she had a little bit of extra money to buy food, and she decided to use that money to give back and to buy food for others. And so she was saying, you know I need to tighten my belt, and I'm going to do that so somebody else can eat. And we've seen so many people giving from a place that is really hard lately. So I think in some ways that's even more beautiful than people giving from abundance. So that's been really amazing to watch.
That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that story, Leslie. Tell me from your organization, if funding were absolutely no concern, what would you implement to feed more people efficiently and effectively? Let's dream and brainstorm here about what you would do. Myron, you want to start us off?
Sure. If money and resources were limited, I would multiply our food distribution process throughout the city. Instead of having one large site here on Gate City Boulevard, I would open multiple sites around the city based upon the demographics that we would know where food deserts are. And not only would we do food distribution, but I would want to set up kind of a market where people would be able to come in who would qualify to come in, and they come in and it'd be a high quality experience for them to come in, to be able to have selection and choice, to be able to also get resource with regards to how to prepare healthy, nutritious foods, how to put these together. Even like when we go to Sam's Club and Costco, having people give out samples, and an experience that gives people a different way of experiencing food, and that's beyond the desperation, I need to feed my family, but they can be empowered to choose food, get the foods that their kids like and their family like, and then knowing how to prepare that, and also give an opportunity for people to be able in a cooperative way to be able to invest in, rather be through volunteerism and other ways, so that in those areas they also have ownership of the experience.
Great, thank you.
I'll jump in here. I think a few things with our partner agency network help them to expand their cold storage capacity, which seems like a really basic thing, but you know, as we know, the freshest things in our own homes are the things that are in our refrigerator and our freezer. And so helping our partner agencies have the ability to do that, whether it's the actual refrigeration or helping them upgrade their electricity or space to be able to even handle that. And also, I think engaging with community more to talk about what are the foods which they would enjoy. I think what Myron said is 100% right, is that choice issue is critical, and helping people to understand that, you know, if you've never had certain fresh vegetables or fruits, and how do you make them something your family will eat? We are a generation in that has lived off of processed food, and getting people to understand the importance as well as how wonderful fresh food can be is really critical. So again, increasing the capacity to both listen to community and say, you know, what are the foods you're interested in? How can we source those more, get those in? And that's a big challenge that we have overall. We can maybe talk about later, is the sourcing piece. So cold storage, more food that people want to see versus just those items that we're able to get donated or provided through food drives or donated through our grocery partners, I think would benefit us all.
Great. Emily or Leslie?
Emily, you opened up a Pandora's box. On if there were no barriers, what would I do? But just looking very carefully at a simple gesture, we're still very much a startup organization. And so I think our biggest barrier is people just not knowing who we are or what we do. So we've never had a marketing budget, and we just, since COVID started, spent a little bit of money on marketing. We lost about a third of our donors who were either unable to give food or were scared to go shopping in March and April. So we spent some money on marketing and made a third of those donors back up. But I also realized how magical it is when you spend some money on marketing. So I think we would spend a little bit more money on that and get some more name recognition, because I think when people hear how easy it is to give back, people are really willing to just leave a bag of groceries on their doorstep every other month. So that's one big thing that I would spend money on. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of other cities, I know Weaver Foundation has spent a lot of time looking at what other cities are doing to implement some really neat projects. Myron and Eric have both talked about some of those. But I think Greensboro can do so much to take food to where people are. One of our big problems is food deserts and people not having transportation to get to the food. So one thing that a simple gesture has been working on is making sure that there is food in pediatricians' offices, because children from 0 to 3 desperately need food for their bodies to develop correctly. So if I wish for a lot of reasons, I wish we didn't have COVID, but part of that program has been stalled because of this. And that's really one of my big dreams, is to make sure that every child from birth to 18 has access to food all the time. So that's a big thing that I would focus money and time on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I would add, I love all of the different ideas about different models that each organization can use. And I do think the more we can have food in varying locations is so important. I also really have to take a place, like if we're talking about no barriers, I think it's really important to acknowledge that we need different systems and policies in our country and in our state. And so we can put lots of different food throughout the city and different models, and that can be really helpful and has shown to be beneficial. But what we also know is that if people have money to purchase food, be it through a job or through something like SNAP benefits, they do, and they use it for that. And so one way, without barriers, financial or political, we could move forward in that way. And really, if we had different systems and policies in place, then we could have people who are able to shop for the food that they want at the locations that they want.
Great, thank you. So let's
Emily, can I
yes.
answer that? Sorry,
Yes.
I'll
No,
just jump on this soapbox for a second. The U.S. is so close to ending hunger. We spend less than 1% of our budget of our national budget on hunger programs, and that makes up for 92% of all food aid. And every church and every nonprofit only is contributing to that last 8%. So if we just had a little bit more political will to end hunger, we can do, as a country, we can end hunger. We just have to cover that last 8%. And I think that's one thing that was really hard for most hunger nonprofits right at the beginning of COVID, before some of the stimulus money hit, is hunger increased so quickly, and a lot of that burden was put onto hunger nonprofits. Then the government stepped in and some of that was eased, but we are so close to ending hunger through policy. We can do it. And I hope that this crisis shows us that we can step up and really help each other out.
Thank you for adding that. That should give lots of people hope, I hope. Let's go back to what Eric said. Eric, you commented about something about supply chain. Would you mind just expanding on that a little bit? I know all of you have experienced supply issues, and I would just love to hear you talk more about that.
Yeah, it's a huge challenge. I think, going back to the beginning when you're talking about surprise, I think is how fragile the food supply chain really is. But it's also very resilient, but it does take some time, when we drive by farms and, see what's happening. We're like, oh, that's so awesome. That's tremendous. But the process it takes from, corn going from the field to, harvest to the, someone who's going to use, create different products with it. It just takes time. So when there was a shock to the system that was so strong at the beginning of the pandemic, it's taking longer than I think people anticipate to recover. We see it, whether it's the challenge to buy toilet paper or the challenge to buy beef or a variety of canned products. It's difficult. And for us, we've seen a real challenge from our grocery partners to be able to provide shelf-stable items. Produce, we're doing very well on to be able to provide a lot of that. And we really don't see that it's going to recover until late summer, early fall. However, I was talking with our food sourcing manager earlier today before this call, and he said there's a concern about can shortages. So even as we get into getting things out of the fields into producers, will they be able to can it the way we've had it before? So there's uncertainty. And then again, if we go into shutdown mode again with the rise in cases, will there be another run on products? All of that is affecting our ability to source food. Right now, we have purchased, members of our board are on the call, Susan Cox and Phil McAdams and possibly others. They have approved us purchasing 54 tractor trailer loads of food. And that's a beginning point for us. We usually don't have to purchase that level of food. A lot of the orders that we submitted in the past few weeks are not going to show up on our doors until October or November. That is the challenge that we face. So we're thankful, though, that federal food commodities are plentiful at the moment. Again, Leslie is speaking of what the government does do. A key piece is that sourcing. So we're getting a lot of that out And that's good fresh food. It's everything from apples and oranges to, ground pork or whole chickens, that type of thing. So big shock to the system that we're still going to be dealing with, we think actually for the next 14 to 16 months.
Wow. How are the supply demands are affecting the rest of you, Leslie or Myron specifically? Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I'd say certainly, I think Eric nails it. It's kind of the same reality in that there are certain items that, as we go out to grocery stores to pick up items, basically you're getting the items that are available. And we're finding that certain items, are not there. And then trying to purchase those, the challenge is that you can't find them either. And so it does place a challenge, and it has forced us to adjust, as we look at preparing our grocery bags throughout the families. How do we compensate maybe for the lack of protein that may be available, and how do we do some of those things? And so it causes us to have to think differently. And I think we've been able to adapt. But I think the longer it goes on, the bigger the challenge. I know for us, historically, the summer months are our largest, our busiest time for folks coming for food. And so the concern for us is that what that's going to look like going into the summer. So hopefully things will realign itself soon, but it is a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one thing that we're trying to get, of the messaging that we're trying to get out, especially to the people that shop, is we're just depending so heavily on individuals going out and shopping right now, because it is so hard for some of the typical supply chains to get food out to our partners. So whether that's grocery stores that are donating food or buying food or going to Second Harvest, everything's disrupted. So we are really, really dependent on the community right now more than ever to get food to our partners. So anytime somebody can get out and shop and give a few extra cans, that's a huge help.
I was muted. Sorry about that. One question that has come from the chat here. Can you expand on how food education can help the situation? Are there ways for families to know how to buy and cook the most nutritious and less expensive food?
I'll jump in.
I know that we,
ahead,
pre-COVID, we had a strong partnership with some of the local universities, with some of their, to provide with some of their interns coming over and grabbing things out of our food pantry and preparing meals and serving them in our lobby and giving people opportunities to do that. And we got great response from that. And we give people recipes. And so we're hopeful that once things get realigned with COVID and we can have more people kind of together and do some of those things, we found that there was a great added value at what we were getting back from our clients, to get information, education. Because one example we had somebody give us a big stack not long ago of I forget the type of bean it was. It was some beans, and apparently they're really good beans. And so we were giving out these beans to folks, and then we were finding that we seemed to be getting more beans donated than we were giving away. And what started happening was that people were giving food to were actually, bringing the beans back and said, we don't know what to do with these beans. And so in fact, people started coming to us. They started getting the word out in the communities. People say, hey, I'm coming for groceries, but don't give me some of them beans. I heard you guys have some beans that nobody wants. But what we found was that once we found somebody that knew how to cook them and we began to educate, people started asking for them because it was a lack of knowledge of the value or how to make the beans something that could be worthwhile. So I think those are examples of ways that we can educate, not just because we get an abundance of something we're trying to get rid of, but that we can, as has been mentioned already, find ways to help people to know and understand how to use maybe fresh foods in a different way that have not been part of their experience before.
This has probably been one of the most frustrating parts about the pandemic is we have an awesome nutrition team that works with a lot of community partners, and you know, kudos also to the extension services out there, and they do great work. Our hospital systems do great work with nutrition education, but reaching out to the community is not easy. And a few things that our team will do is actually do grocery store tours. We're helping people to understand how to shop effectively on a budget and you know, selecting healthy items, but also doing our Cooking Matters curriculum with a lot of groups. And especially as we're entering, you know, summer camp season, we have traditionally gone out and worked with summer camps and groups of kids, helping them to understand, you know, how to prepare simple menus, but also what different foods taste like, so that they get used to having fresh food. So one thing we're doing is actually recording sessions so that they can be shown at those camps. Since we can't be there in person, they can be shown to the kids, as well as be on YouTube for others to use. We're going to expand that effort. Also, you know, especially for Guilford County, we have a commitment that we just made, that we are going to expand our nutrition education into the community. We're looking to do a large-scale teaching garden. We are looking, one of our team members who will join us literally in the next few days on our team will be based out of Guilford County, and he's a nutrition education. He's you know, has great background, is interned actually with us. So he's going to be working with our partners to reach out more, to do more nutrition education, and work directly again with community is the key thing. Is what do they want? What is most helpful to them? Because, you know, if we can offer something, but if it's not what people want, or that they can relate to and really start to utilize, then it's going to be fairly meaningless. So that, again, community engagement will be core to us going forward.
Thank you, Eric. Leslie or Emily, do you have anything to add? No? Okay, good. So that last part there, Eric, feeds nicely into this next question, and that is, are any of you all able to talk about the role of local community gardens and farmers markets in feeding Guilford County? And what is the relationship between your organizations and those efforts? Emily, you're muted.
Yay, okay, now. So I think we're really fortunate here in Guilford County to have a position of a school and community garden coordinator with the Cooperative Extension. And so Kina Weber-Shirk is in that position and does some really great work with community gardens. And she's also really engaged with hunger nonprofits and work that's happening there. So I think that's one thing that we are doing, but can continue to build. And I think the food education piece, kind of like Eric was saying, like teaching gardens are helpful for folks to, so community gardens, but also gardens that not just here's a plot, go do it, but here, how can we support you in growing your own food is important. And then I think with our local farmers markets, I have heard of some of our farmers markets do accept SNAP EBT benefits, and there are some opportunities to double your, you know, you can spend $10 on your of your SNAP benefits and get $20 worth of produce. And I think efforts to continue that work is important. And I also think for markets to acknowledge that, kind of like Leslie was saying around marketing, that's a piece that it kind of has to tie into the broader folks understanding that markets have that availability and for those things to be used. And I mean, markets right now during COVID are trying to figure out, you know, how do you do a farmer's market and meet all the requirements and restrictions. So I do think it's a work in progress, but I have been excited in the past 3 months to hear markets in particular talking more specifically about how to work with folks who may not be able to afford some of the products at the local farmers markets.
Does anyone else have anything to add to that? Okay. Here's a question that came through on email. How are we doing collectively against the elevated food needs during the time of the pandemic? And some of you have addressed this a little bit. But what, if any, pivot points we are anticipating over the next few months that may change? Again, we've addressed this some, but if you want to add anything to that, and thinking about any community gaps that will be persisting.
I think one of the challenges we're going to face, and I think it's been touched on as we've talked today, is that, you know, food is part of a systemic reality for folks. That food is tied into economics, employment, housing, all those things together, particularly if you're talking about people who are low income. You know, if you don't have enough money, you can't buy enough food, you can't keep your rent, you're stressed out, you don't eat when you're stressed, or you eat bad foods when you're stressed, and all these things get integrated together. I think part of and one of the things that we do and what we've found in the Very Vibrant Herb Ministry is that we've invested significantly into hiring case managers. So that anybody that comes to us can have access to a case manager that can walk alongside of them. Because we find is that if somebody's coming for food, there very well may be there are other life dominating, challenging issues that they may need help to bring stability. We find that not everybody that comes to us for food needs financial assistance, but most everybody who comes to us for financial assistance also leaves because they also need food. And so it's very much intertwined. And so the challenge I think we'll face is that right now, from an economic standpoint, there's been a moratorium placed on evictions. There's been a moratorium. There's been, as we mentioned, additional food stamp monies and other resources, stimulus money. And so there are resources in the community that are available. But the question is, what will happen when the wheels start turning again on evictions, when landlords are free, which I understand, are free to say, hey, we need rent. We're getting calls now from some even landlords from apartments that say, I have people here who are 4 or 5 months behind in their rent. Can you work with some of these folks to help? So I think at some point, and so the opportunity is going to come is that how do we respond, because people are going to need more food, but also how do we do it in a holistic way, so that not only are we meeting the temporal need for food, but that we build in some supports to help people continue to move to a place of stability. Because I know for us at our food pantry, no matter how wonderful our bags of groceries are and how delicious the food is and all those kind of things, it can never replace the dignity and the empowerment that comes for having enough money to care for yourself and your family and to go to the grocery store of your choice and make the purchases of things that you have determined that you want to eat. And so it's going to be an opportunity for us to meet the spike, but also do it in a way that can build stability going forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Eric, do you have something to add there?
Yeah, I think Myron hit it the nail on the head there with the future. I think right now, people need to feel good about the resiliency and the response from the community to start with. We are on an average, when things are normal, quote unquote, whatever that is nowadays, we'll distribute 38 tons of food every single day out of our food bank. And we're averaging now over 50 tons a day. So more food is getting out into the system to help people in need. But then, Emily, the other part of that is that kind of what keeps you up at night question about the future. And it's exactly what Myron said. When the stimulus dollars run out, when the additional SNAP dollars run out, when the additional unemployment runs out, we're going to see a big spike. I don't want to be, a doomsday person about that, but I think it's just a reality that we have to be prepared. And on the other side of that, we've seen tremendous generosity from the community. Individuals, companies, foundations have all stepped forward because they know the need is there. They're also feeling the economic pinch of things. And also, I'm afraid of donor fatigue. because we are going to be at this for a while. Our board chair, and I were talking, a month ago, and she said with her corporation, they were projecting that the back end of this is kind of August, September of next year. And with the way the level of the pandemic is at the moment, is that may be generous. So I think we just need to be more prepared to sustain our efforts and rally together and collaborate more, even more as a community, to respond to the need.
Great. When we all started this back in March, we thought, oh, if we're still doing this in May, we won't be doing this in May. And now you're talking about August or September of next year of 2021. So I think we all, it's very sobering to think of that. And you touched on this a little bit, Eric, again, but a question from someone says that corporations like Truliant had the best intentions of raising funds in the spring, but of course that's been put on hold. So for all four of you, what are ways that companies and businesses are still able to assist your organizations, knowing that most of them are remote? Some of them probably have some corporate funds that are being cut back a little bit at this point. So what are ways they can assist you? And I know Simple Gesture has a wonderful corporate giving program, but would love to have you expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think Truliant posted that, and they have been awesome already. We were going to do a grand opening with them on, I think, April 1st or 2nd, and obviously that didn't happen. But they already came through with a lot of support. So thank you to Truliant and many of the companies that we work with. How our corporate program works usually is people bring a bag to work full of food, get an empty bag at work, take it home, fill it up, and the cycle continues. But what we're doing right now, we have a charity list on Amazon where any corporation can go and shop, or actually any individual can go and shop on Amazon, and that food is sent to us and we take it directly to the partners that need it the most at the time. And we update it constantly to make sure that it's reflecting the needs of our partner pantries as up to date as possible. So that's one easy way. Another way is people to give at home, and we'll come and pick up food from them at home. And then we've also had a lot of volunteers. Every food nonprofit needs volunteers, whether that's going to the grocery store and picking up food, or packing bags, or taking them to school summer sites. So there are tons of opportunities. A lot of the food nonprofits have been very good about posting those needs on the Volunteer Center's website. So you can go and look under their COVID website and you can see most of those opportunities there.
Thank you, Leslie. I have taken advantage of that Amazon wish list because I am one of those that's a little scared to go out to the grocery store. So
thank you.
I appreciate any organization that does that for those of us who want to give back. Anyone else have ways that corporations can be helpful?
I think we are seeing folks start to come out to volunteer. And so as companies want to get their people reconnected with each other, it's a great opportunity to come out and sort food and help us get the shelf-stable items ready to go out to our partners. So that's a great opportunity. And then do some food challenges as well. It could be supporting our virtual food drive that is, through feedcommunitynow.org. That's a great way. But also, I think it's critical for the companies who have those close relationships with, whether it's Greensboro Urban Ministries, One Step Further, Salvation Army, A Simple Gesture, and others, is, hopefully they can reach out and say, how can I help? And really expand on those. I think, people supporting A Simple Gesture, whether it's corporately or neighborhood drives. I know Greensboro Urban Ministries has one of their big food drives probably coming up fairly soon. And we as a community need to make sure that that is, the best drive that has ever happened. So, driving people to those local food drives of these wonderful partner agencies and others to just see how they can engage with them and support them. Certainly we can find ways, again, through volunteerism and our virtual food drive are easy ways, but also on-site food drives as well. But, we want people to follow their passion and follow their passion to address this need. And there's so many great organizations. So it's just really identifying what is the best way for us to get involved.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll certainly echoing both of those statements, and that we've been fortunate that we have had some of our corporate partners reach out to us and say, how can we help? And we appreciate the financial gifts, but also volunteers. So all those things are needed, and we're still figuring out what the new normal looks like with how people engage. But certainly financial contributions are always helpful, because when we talk about food, and I'm sure my other friends who run agencies, is that while the food is being distributed, there is some cost involved with operating a program to get food to people. And so we certainly want to encourage around food-related gifts, but also corporations, as they have opportunity to continue to support us financially, so that we can keep the wheels churning, the trucks moving, and all the different things that need to happen so that we can get food to people in a way that's quick and also with dignity.
Thank you, Myron. So we really want to be respectful of people's time, and we have a couple minutes left. If we did not answer your question, I have everyone's emails, so I will send those questions to our participants and see if they might want to respond to you individually. But I'm going to ask this one last question because we've talked about how we can give our money, we can give food, we can do lots of things for your organizations to make sure our community members are fed. But in addition to that, what type of public policy should we be advocating for at the federal, state, and county levels? Would love to hear the four of you weigh in on that for all of us. Don't all jump at once.
Yeah, Leslie needs to go first on this one. She's awesome, such a guru.
I don't know. Myron had his button
Leslie
first.
I was going to say, hey, Leslie, speak up.
I get so excited about policy. So
And we'll let you handle it then, Leslie. Go for it.
thank you for the question. I think one of the quickest and easiest ways to get ourselves out of hunger is to have a living wage where people can actually afford to buy food. Emily said that earlier, and I think Myron also said dignity is so important, and people do not want to depend on other people to buy food. So if we could have a living wage, that seems like a silver bullet to me. We also have some very exciting things that are in Congress right now that are being debated. Expanding EBT, expanding how we think about school feeding. That's going to change a lot probably in the next several months, especially as a second wave comes through. And we cannot keep depending on nonprofits to meet those needs. The burden is just too great. We've done a great job in Greensboro. We haven't done a great job nationally. And I don't know if the Greensboro nonprofits have the capacity to continue doing what they've been doing for the long term. So yeah, expanding EBT, expanding pandemic EBT. Also thinking about our seniors. That's a really vulnerable group right now. After children, they're the second most likely to be hungry. So really expanding their needs. On a global level, we're looking at possibly doubling hunger over the next 12 to 14 months, people that are likely to starve to death. So, and what you see when people are that hungry are major riots and political instability. So it has always been part of the United States diplomatic plans to use food as a source of peace, going back really to the beginning of the US. So I think what we'll be seeing is a lot of USAID money going towards food in different countries. For example, just yesterday, I saw that we gave several $1 million to Zimbabwe to help with their hunger riots, some money to South Africa, to Sudan. People being hungry like to riot. And so anyway, I think we had the opportunity to advocate on a lot of levels. So hopefully in just a couple of minutes that helps you understand what we can advocate for.
Thank you for that, Leslie. I think our participants know where to go if they want more information on that, since your colleagues have asked you to speak on it. I appreciate you for being here. You are incredible. And when I start feeling like I can't handle how much hunger there is, I look at the four of you and think, we can do this. And the four of you, I have confidence in you. So thank you for doing all that you are doing. Phelps is going to put on the screen now contact information for our guests here, so that anyone who's here can reach out to you. I just wanted to remind all of you that we did record this, and it will hopefully be on social media and our website, the Community Foundation's website, this afternoon. Also, as I mentioned earlier, the Community Foundation is dedicated to facilitating these conversations, and we're looking forward to our next webcast, which will be in mid-August. We're going to take July off, and in August, we're going to speak with some of our public health officials to discuss healthcare. So that will be a wonderful session that we hope you will all attend. If you have ideas for topics to cover in September and beyond, we'd love to hear from you, and you can reach out to me, Kevin Lundy in our grants department, or Phelps in our development department. So with that, thank you all for being here, and let us know if you need anything. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.